forever came to be associated with that khukri. The khukri and the soldier who severed his leg off in battle. Do you remember what you felt mentally and emotionally at that moment?
The army is a way of life which I adore. As far as my leg is concerned, no, I wouldn't want it back.
Tell us a little bit about the Gorkhas. I think a lot of people, great fighting community, but your experience.
There is a saying amongst the Gorkhas, Kafir banda morno ramro. That is, it's better to die than be a coward.
There's a lot of debate over recruiting Gorkhas and whether that might come to an end.
Yeah, it's all because of Agniveer. Stupid schemes like Agnipat need to be scrapped.
Let's for a moment talk about the present. A country that India helped birth, a war that you were part of, a conflict in which you lost your leg. What goes through your mind and heart as a soldier who was part of the operation to birth this country?
Bangladesh is a volatile country.
Yeah. As a soldier, what are you proudest of?
It's a difficult question.
General Cardozo, you have seen action in 3 wars, 1962, 1965 and 1971.
Yeah.
When you look back at these conflicts, these wars, which do you think was the most challenging for India?
I think perhaps the 1965 war. Because 71, we were on the up and up. It concerned mostly East Pakistan. Whereas in 65, we were in quite a dangerous situation. Pakistan, for reasons which are better, we can discuss if you like, reached up to 12 miles short of Akhnur, which meant that Jammu was under threat. The route to Kargil, the route to Siachen, the second alternative route to Srinagar was all going to be compromised. So it was the most dangerous time, and Lal Bahadur Shastri, who was a lion at heart, took a strong decision to open the second front in Punjab. That made the Pakistanis withdraw from J&K and fight the war in Punjab, and that's how J&K got saved. So I think the 65 war was the war which was most crucial to India.
And you're saying if Shastri had not opened that second front along the Punjab border, the outcome may have been different?
The outcome may have been different because by that time we had also sent in our reinforcements to Akhnur. There would have been a glorious big battle, but the point is that it was avoided by opening the second front, which was a great strategic decision. And not only that, then we sent 1 corps to Sialkot, 11 corps to Lahore, and Pakistan was, reeling back.
Now, you have a new book out on the 1965 war.
Yes.
And you are a prolific author. It's sometimes tough to keep pace with the number of books you write.
Thank you so much.
If I may ask, you're well into your 80s and still writing how many hours a day?
I'm writing to about 4 to 5 hours a day. Earlier, I've slowed down, Barkha. Earlier, I used to write about 8 hours a day.
Fabulous.
So now it's about 4 to 5 hours a day, and I've slowed down a bit. But as long as I know a reporter recently asked me to do something which I didn't want to do. So she said, "Sir, why don't you do it?" So I said, "I'm in the departure lounge. I'm 87 years old." She said, "Where are you going?"
Yes, you're not going anywhere. Let's talk about the book that is just out, which really brings us untold and unknown stories of the 65 war. Now, one of the big sort of debates of military history has been Hajipir and the decision to give it back after capturing it. When you look back at that, first, I think there's an entire generation that doesn't know this battle. So we have to talk a little bit about what happened at Hajipir and then why the decision to return, to hand it back.
Let's go back a little. Ayub Khan at that time, Field Marshal Ayub Khan was also the chief of the army of Pakistan. And his hold over Pakistan was getting a little tenuous. So he decided to annex J&K by force. So he called his corps commanders and they came out with 3 operations. Operation Desert Hawk in Gujarat, Operation Gibraltar in J&K, and Operation Grand Slam. So with these 3 battles, he was wanting to grab, they were all very well planned, they were very good operations. But I've forgotten where we were heading.
Haji Pir.
So Haji Pir was the entrance into the Srinagar Valley of the infiltrators. So a brigadier called Zoru Bakshi from my regiment, he was tasked with sealing Haji Pir, capturing Haji Pir, which he did with a very, very difficult operation. It was a great, Pakistan was taken by surprise. The routes were sealed, no one could enter. But as I mentioned earlier, that the Pakistanis had come to within 12 miles of Akhnur, and that's where they were sitting.
Right.
When the ceasefire took place, they were sitting 12 miles short of Akhnur.
Right.
So we had no option but to accept the ceasefire, to say we'll go back to our original positions. So we had to come back from Haji Pir, and they had to go back from Akhnur.
Do you think that was a mistake? Could that have been managed in a different way?
It would be most desirable, but it would be impossible.
Why?
Because the UN and whoever insisted on the ceasefire meant that we had to go back to our original positions. Supposing we said we are not giving Haji Pir back, then Pakistan would have said, and we are not leading, it's 12 miles short of Akhnur, they were in Joria.
Right.
So we will not go back from Joria. So Joria would have been in their hands. So Jammu and Kashmir would have been at risk.
So for that point, there was no option but to do what India did.
Yes.
Now, you also speak about how the Navy was somehow kept out of this conflict.
Yes. It's very well described in the book. What happened was that at that time, Indonesia was saying that why is India claiming the Indian Ocean as their own? It should be the Indonesian Ocean. And that why are the Andaman and Nicobar Islands part of India? They're closer to us. And they were aiming to capture some parts of the Great Nicobar Island. So the Navy was sent there to protect the Bay of Bengal, to protect the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So there was very little of it available for the western seaboard. But the admiral, the naval chief, was wanting to launch offensive operations against Pakistan. Lal Bahadur Shastri said, no, you don't have the resources. We have enough on our hands to relax. So he kept the Navy out. But subsequently, this upset the Navy and all the senior officers. And subsequently, Admiral, the subsequent chief of the naval staff said that I know Pakistan like the back of my hand. I was born in Karachi and I'll set Karachi on fire. And that's what he did in the 71 war.
Right.
So it had a good outcome ultimately. But it was very humiliating for the Indian Navy not to be able to take part in the 65 war. And government never said that they had ordered it. So it was unfortunate.
Your book raises a prickly question. Was the 1965 war a draw?
That's what both sides claim, but actually, in my opinion, it's not a draw. Von Clausewitz says that in war, if you destroy the enemy war machine and its ability to fight, you have won the war. Now, Pakistan had launched its operation to capture J&K. It failed.
Right.
So we won.
That's how I would see it, because Pakistan had an intent, just as it had an intent in Kargil. And, just as in Kargil, a war I reported, we were able to push them back and basically nullify their plan. I think in 1965, Indian troops nullified the Pakistan plan.
Yeah, not only that, the Americans had given Pakistan 400 patent tanks, besides a number of other things, aircraft, ships, etc. But we destroyed 50% of their tanks at the Battle of Sylhet and Khemkaran. So if you, as Von Clausewitz said, if you destroy the enemy war machine, then you have won.
Absolutely.
So then we captured over 1,565 square kilometers of their Pakistani territory, and they had in their hands about 500 or something. So I think we can justly say that we won the war. It's not a draw.
You spoke about Khemkaran, so I'll tell you a little story. My mother, who was a journalist with the Hindustan Times, she died when I was 13 years old. But she was amongst the first women journalists of her generation, and she had to really fight to get the job in the Hindustan Times. After she had proven herself and, she was finally accepted into the mainstream of the newsroom, the war broke out. I was not yet born, but I grew up on this story. So she asked
And you followed her footsteps.
I did follow her footsteps. And then she asked her editor if she could go and report the war. Now, there's no television, no digital platforms then. There's only newspapers, right? And they said, there's no way we're going to send a woman to the war front. She had a cousin in the army. She went alone with a notepad and pen to Khemkaran, to the Khemkaran sector, and became the first woman to report on a war in India.
Wow.
And some army officers were kind enough to send me photographs of her with them standing in front of a tank.
Okay.
So I just thought I'd share that story.
Great.
But when you look back at 65, sir, what's the one thing you think everybody should know, that we don't talk about often enough?
I think the fact that one, that we won the war, two, that the Navy was not allowed to take part, and three, the Battle of Dograi.
Tell us more about that.
It was a fantastic battle. Now, in the army, when we attack a feature, we are supposed to be 3:1. That means the proportion should be such. Why 3:1? Because when you attack, you're going to be hit by minefields, by artillery fire, by MMG fire, by mortars. So the strength which reaches the enemy objective should be at least equal to those who are holding it. Therefore, it is 3:1. Now, Dograi was held by a Pakistani infantry battalion, the 4 Baluch. And Jats were part of the brigade. They were not supposed to capture Dograi, but when they found that nothing was happening, the CO voluntarily said, I'll capture Dograi. He says, how can you capture Dograi alone? He says, we'll do it. You don't have a problem. And he did it, to cut a long story short. He captured Dograi. What he did was, he saw that the defenses were all facing India. So he went from behind. The defenses were turned. The Pakistanis were fighting for their lives. And they were massacred. Not only that, having done that, without further orders, he went ahead to Batapur, Bata shoes, Bata factory. He went to Batapur, which was 12 miles short of Lahore. And he was alone, just one battalion. And he would not have been able to sustain an attack by Pakistan. A whole division, 11 was there, 10 and 2 divisions were there. So they called him back. He thought that this was an affront to the honor of the Jats. And he said so. So many men have been killed, so many men have been wounded. You call me back, it's an insult to the Jats. Subsequently, Dograi was empty. We could have captured Dograi again. But Pakistani reinforced it with a brigade, plus an armored regiment, plus artillery, and now became a very impregnable fortress. Now, the core task was to threaten Lahore. And it had not been achieved. It had been achieved by Jats when they captured Batapur. But now they had evacuated and come back. Now the Jats were saying, we've got to go back and capture Dograi. He said, how can you do it? You're just a battalion, you're with so many casualties. So the CO told the brigade commander and the div commander, it is in the destiny of the Jats to capture Dograi. Nobody else can do it. It is ours and ours alone. And he captured Dograi a second time. A small battalion captured a brigade, destroyed over 900 bodies were counted. And they were just less than 500. So it was a fantastic battle described in the book.
These are great stories. And people like you who chronicle these tales, you're leaving them for a generation that isn't aware of them. I want to talk a little bit about you. Now, we know, don't be coy. We know you to be the first disabled war-wounded soldier to lead both a battalion first and then a brigade. But let's go back to how this happened. I know, but many young people don't know. So I want you to tell the story of how it came to be that a khukri, you take a khukri and you amputate your leg. Tell us the story.
I think we have to go a little back further to the Battle of Sylhet.
Yes.
My battalion, the 4th Battalion, the 5th Gorkhas, a very brave battalion commanded by a very courageous and brave CO, Lieutenant Colonel Harrowing at that time. I was in Staff College at that time. And I was hurrying to join the battalion because the 2IC had been killed, and I was to replace the 2IC. We had, by that time, launched 2 attacks, one at Atkaram and one at Ghazipur. We will not cover that in detail, but suffice it to say that by this time, we had entered the war with 18 officers. By this time, 3 had been killed and 4 had been wounded. And the CEO was trying to muster his forces to reorganize the companies when Sagat Singh, the corps commander, who is the finest field commander this country has ever produced, ordered, send the Gorkhas to Sylhet. The brigade which is holding Sylhet has gone to Dhaka for defense of Dhaka. Sylhet is empty. I want them to go immediately. The CEO said, sir, is this the only battalion in the corps? We are busy. We are trying to reorganize the battalion. He said, no, you have to go now. So orders were orders. Then when you para-drop a battalion behind enemy lines or heli-drop a battalion behind enemy lines, that battalion cannot sustain itself for more than 48 hours because there will be casualties, there will be less ammunition, there will be no food, there will be no evacuation of casualties, and so many things.
Yeah.
So we were told that we will be reinforced within 48 hours. It never happened. To cut a long story short, the CEO said, I know it will be difficult to be reinforced. We won't take food. We won't take water. We'll take more ammunition. We'll take more grenades.
You took ammunition instead of food and water?
Yeah, and equipment. We didn't take blankets. It was cold. So we fought, cut a long story short, we fought for 9 days and 9 nights without reinforcements, without food, without water. We were drinking water from muddy ponds, scrabbling for rice on the huts. So we had a really rough time. But the BBC came to our rescue. How? Now a battalion consists of 1,000 men. So 3 battalions make a brigade, consists of 3,000 men. So the Indian Army did the Indian government did a very good thing by allowing foreign correspondents to accompany our troops in battle.
Yeah. This is 71.
71.
Yeah.
Now the BBC correspondent got mixed up between a battalion and a brigade. And he said, instead of a battalion has captured Sylhet, he said a brigade of Gorkhas has landed at Sylhet. Yeah. And we knew that the Pakis were listening.
Yeah.
So he pretended to be a brigade.
That's a great story. Yeah.
And then when after 9 days, 2 Pakistani officers came with white flags to surrender, my CEO said, nothing doing, tell them to go back. Why? He didn't want them to know how few we were on the ground. So they said, no, can we talk to the brigade commander? Then we realized that we'd managed to bluff them that we were a brigade.
That's right.
So we said, you come tomorrow, these are brigade commander's orders,
yes,
and we'll see. The brigade commander will ask for instructions from higher headquarters. And the next day, the brigade commander came in a chopper. So the Pakistani brigadier asked him, who has come in this chopper? So he says, I've come. So he says, aren't you here? He says, no, where are you? I'm 100 miles away. There was a lot of murmuring amongst the officers and the troops because they could not believe. Then he said, what is here? So the brigade commander said, it's only a battalion. And that too, half a battalion. They couldn't believe it.
And by then it was too late for the Pakistanis.
Yes. And we were shocked because 3 brigadiers, 2 full colonels, 170 officers, 290 JCOs, and 8,000 troops surrendered to us. It was a fantastic battle, a fantastic outcome.
Now you ended up stepping on a mine.
Yes, so what happened was when now these fellows, these Pakistani chaps were our prisoners, now we were responsible for them.
Yeah.
And their safety. And the Mukti Bahini and the people of Bangladesh were out to take revenge because of the atrocities that they had committed. Over 1 million Bangladeshis had been killed, and 10 million had come into India. So we were responsible now for their safety. So a BSF platoon commander was getting agitated, and he came on the radio and said, these people are all armed, there's so many of them, and he was panicking. So I told the CEO, sir, I think I better go. And he said, Ian, we don't know where this BSF battalion has come from. They're not our responsibility. Why are you going to? The war is over now, relax. I said, sir, supposing he opens fire, there'll be an international incident. Let me go. Very reluctantly, he let me go. Now, in the Geneva Convention says all minefields are to be marked, both sides. I walked into a minefield which was unmarked. I stepped on a mine and my leg blew off. I remember calling out to my wife's name and I fell.
Priscilla.
Priscilla, I said, and I fell. And then, of course, I was bleeding very badly. A Mukti Bahini person in a lungi had the guts to get into the minefield and pick me up. He must have been a strong person, big person. He picked me up and took me, I don't know how, whether it was in a jeep, my mind is not very clear, or to the battalion headquarters. And I remember apologizing to the CEO. She said, sir, I'm sorry, this has happened. He said, no, it doesn't matter.
Did you know at this point that you'd lost your leg?
Yeah, my leg was hanging. My foot was hanging by some pieces of flesh. So Unfortunately, by this time, the MI room had been blown up. So there were no medicines, there was no medication, there was nothing to cut my leg off with. And the RMO, the regiment medical officer, came and I said, Doc, could you cut this off? So he said, I don't have anything. I said, please go and find something. And he went, poor chap, he's a very fine officer. He got a Sena medal, brave officer, good officer, medical officer. But he took a long time to come. And this is what I remember, that there was a khukri lying there. And I said, well, there's a khukri lying there. I said to my runner, can you cut this off? So he said, Saab, wait for the RMO. So I said, no, give it to me. I didn't hack it off. I didn't slash it off. Everyone is making a big issue of this. I just had to sever it and it dropped down. I didn't think much about it at that time, but I spoke. And it's become a big story. So then after that, now there was no medication, there was nothing.
But you cut this off without any medication because there was nothing available?
There was nothing available. But I was, I was bleeding very badly. The doctor had tried a tourniquet to stop the blood from pumping.
But how did you have the mental agility at that time to know that this leg has to be severed for you to live?
I knew it was, Barkha, it was disgusting to look at it. My leg.
You remember it?
Yeah.
What do you remember?
I remember my foot in my boot, which had been broken apart. My boot was hanging by flesh. And I was just very keen to get rid of whatever was left. And that's what I remember. And then after that, the Pakis came to know that we don't have any medication. The MI room had blown up. So they offered to operate on me. They had surrendered. So a person, I don't remember her by face, but according to the documents which he had signed, his name was Major Muhammad Bashir, Pakistan Medical Army, whatever, Pakistan Medical Corps. And he did a good job. And I've never been able to say thank you to him.
Did you ever try and find him?
No, unfortunately.
So this surgery took place after you had severed the leg?
Yeah.
But you remember talking to him?
No.
No.
I only remember his name on the document, Major Muhammad Bashir.
You forever came to be associated with that khukri. The khukri and the soldier who severed his leg off in battle. Do you remember what you felt mentally and emotionally at that moment?
See, in the 65 war, I had seen a lot of action. My company, my 2IC had been killed, my platoon commander had been killed, my best NCOs had been killed, had to be rebuilt up for the next operation. So I'd seen a lot. And somehow, the trauma of losing a leg, looking back, I didn't think, frankly speaking, too much of it. I just felt I'm lucky to be alive. That's what I felt. Looking back, at that time, I don't know what I was thinking. So that's what I think, recollect at that time.
What is it like, now that you've had time to process this, what is it like for a soldier to lose a limb, to lose a leg?
A reporter many years later asked me, if you had to live your life all over again, would you join the army? And would you like your leg back? So I said, without a doubt, the army is a way of life which I adore. I mean, something which I cannot think of any other life to live. I would certainly have rejoined the army. As far as my leg is concerned, no, I wouldn't want it back. For the simple reason.
You don't want your amputated leg back?
No.
You don't want it back?
No.
How old were you when this happened to you?
I must have been 34.
Okay, so today you're 87?
87.
At 87, you're saying you don't want your leg back. At 34, did you desperately want it back?
No, I didn't think about it.
At all?
At all. But when the reporter asked me,
yes,
for the first time I started thinking. And I said, I am what I am today because I have lost a leg. I had many battles to fight. I fought those battles and I won. And that is why I am what I am today, because I lost a leg. So I don't want it back.
I mean, that's one way of looking at it, yes. Yeah, only a soldier could look at it that way.
Yeah.
You then, as I said, go on to lead a battalion and a brigade, but it isn't easy to convince your senior officers that you can do that with a wooden leg, with a prosthetic, right? How do you convince them?
Actually, there was no other life I wanted to live except with my troops, Gorkhas.
You didn't want to be at a desk. You didn't think, now I've lost a leg, let me sit at a table.
Not only that, the Gorkhas are out the ordinary troops, wonderful troops, and I was wanting to go back to them. You know, when I went after my first leave, they said, your leave is sanctioned. Where do you want to go? I said, I come from Bombay. I want to go to Bombay. He said, your leave is sanctioned, but you won't go to Bombay. You'll go to Nepal. So this boy is going on leave. He'll take you to his home. You stay with him for 3 days and go from house to house to house to house. And I met my Jawans' wives, their children, their parents, their grandparents. I learned the lives they lived. I learned their songs, their dances, the culture. And I became one with them.
Yeah.
And I could think of no other life. I wanted to go back, but I didn't know how. So I decided on my own, I think God intervened, I decided I should be physically fit for whatever challenges came my way.
With your prosthetic leg?
Yes. Yeah. So I used to run 6-7 kilometers a day. I ran so much that one day I fell down on the ground because my foot metal fatigue had broken off. And I hopped up and I picked up my boot and my wooden foot, and I flagged down a car. Luckily, he was an army officer. So he said, what is it? I said, my foot's fallen off. He said, what? I said, my foot is. He said, oh, you have an artificial leg. Come in. Took me home. And the army gives you a reserve leg. So I had a reserve leg at home and I continued. The thing is that...
I mean, you know how surreal it is for civilians to hear this, that your leg fell off and you have a reserve leg at home. And you're saying it like it's the most normal thing.
Yeah, that's how it was.
Yeah.
And I used to go to the DSOI swimming pool every
and swim with your prosthetic leg.
Yeah. Now, when
was it difficult?
See,
at first,
I like to tell you what the reaction of the people was.
Yeah.
The pool was full of parents, officers, their wives, the children. And when I used to walk up to the pool with my wooden leg, all conversations stopped. And they should look at me and say, look at this strange man with the wooden leg. I'd take off my leg and dive into the pool.
You would take off the leg and dive into the pool?
And I'm a bit of a show-off. So I used to swim about 10 lengths, butterfly, backstroke, breaststroke, freestyle. Yeah. And then the parents used to come and ask me, can you teach my child to swim? So that was very reassuring, very empowering that I'm better than you.
But you make it sound like there was no period of transition or struggle. That couldn't have been.
There was a period of struggle, but I just took it as something which happens to anyone in the army. You know, they're making a big fuss about me, but the point is we were 300 to 400 amputees in William Center. And they all had similar stories to tell, but nobody's told their stories. Making much of me because I told my story.
Yeah.
I think I feel a little uncomfortable.
No, we'll try and tell as many stories as we can of as many soldiers as we can.
No, but coming back to how I got a battalion.
Yes.
So then I took part.
So you became physically fit with your prosthetic wooden leg.
Yeah. And we have what is known as PPET and BPET tests.
Okay. Which are physical tests.
Yeah, physical tests. So I was exempt because medical category, but I took part. To cut a long story short, I was better than, I left 7 officers behind me in the 2-mile run. I did better than them. So the conducting officer wrote a nice report about me to my boss, who was the DMO, Director of Military Operations, General Vaidya.
Right.
So General Vaidya said, don't you want to come out of battalion? I said, yes, sir, I want to. So he said, what's stopping you? I said, the rules don't permit. So he said, you apply, I'll help you. So I applied. He helped me, sent me to the vice chief. Vice chief said, come with me to J&K.
So he was in a way testing you. The story goes that the vice chief calls you to Ladakh, I think it was?
No, it was J&K.
J&K. So the vice chief calls you to J&K, and in a way, in field, he's getting a chance to also see how fit you are with your wooden leg.
Yeah, possibly, but there was a test. He was going in a chopper with 2 pilots, and the formation commander and he in the chopper, and I was down with the vehicles. At the last picket, I learned that a friend of mine was commanding that post. So I didn't think about it. I just climbed about 4,800 feet.
With your
wooden leg. I didn't think much about it. I just climbed and I went and had breakfast with him.
Was it difficult to climb?
It was a bit difficult, not because it was the climb, because the ground, it was probably rained, the ground was mushy, so I was slipping. But I managed. And the vice chief came in a chopper and he said, how have you come here? thinking that I'm an NDE guy. I've got my friends in the Air Force and I wangled a chopper. So I didn't understand. So I said, sir, I've climbed. He said, you can climb. So I said, sir, what is in the minds of, what I can or cannot do is in the minds of my senior officers. He said, what do you mean? I said, sir, you don't know what I can do or what I cannot do. So he said, don't be impertinent. I said, sorry, sir. But it clicked and he went to the chief, General Raina, who was also a battle casualty. He had lost an eye. If those rules applied to him, he would never been the chief.
Right.
So he said, is it? Send him with me to Ladakh. So I went with him to Ladakh. He saw me walk up, climb. And he came back and asked for my file. And he said, yes, give him a battalion. And what is more important, and other war-wounded officers who are not taking shelter of their wounds, which meant that people who are trying to be as normal as possible should be given a chance to capture. So that's how I commanded the battalion. But they wouldn't give me a brigade. They said there's no precedent.
Then?
So then I wrote to the chief. I said, I don't know what's wrong with army headquarters. They got to hang up. If I can command a battalion, there's no reason why I can't command a brigade, and that too in field. So luckily for me, again, God intervened. The chief was my div commander in 71. So he said, why are you harassing this officer? He's right. If you can command a battalion, there's no reason why you can't command a brigade. Give him a brigade. I got a brigade. That opened promotion for the whole army of battle casualties to go up to chief. And we are hoping for the time when a battle casualty will become the chief. 3 of them became army commanders. 1 had lost both legs.
Fantastic. You also have joked darkly that you left, your leg was left behind in Bangladesh, right? I think you say you have a little piece of land there, because what happened to the leg that you severed?
I had no idea. You know, losing a leg, I suppose.
I mean, we're joking about it. You make it possible because you say it so matter-of-factly. You know, it's quite extraordinary.
Actually, see, this was asked of me much, much later.
Yeah.
So because I asked my batty when I cut off my leg to go and bury it. So it must be somewhere there. I don't know where. So I just joked and I said, I own part of Bangladesh because my leg is part of it.
Let's for a moment talk about the present. A country that India helped birth, a war that you were part of, a conflict in which you lost your leg, today seems to have turned full circle with the daughter of the founder, the father of Bangladesh, seeking refuge in India as she gets toppled. Are you following the events in Bangladesh, and what goes through your mind and heart as a soldier who was part of the operation to birth this country, to help carve it out from Pakistan, a conflict to which you lost a limb, a leg, your whole life changed in that conflict in 1971, and today, in 2024, the daughter of the founding father takes exile in India, or we don't know for how long, takes temporary refuge in India, and Bangladesh has turned full circle. How does it make you feel?
See, as a soldier, one of the most important things, what makes a soldier fight, is that he's fighting for a just cause.
Yeah.
And the cause that we were fighting for in 1971 was a very just cause. And we did what we did, and we succeeded in liberating East Pakistan, and Bangladesh was born. It was a tremendous victory. It gave us a tremendous sense of satisfaction, because we got the government, which was the right government in power, and it felt good. We knew that there were inimical forces there who were also wanting to grab power, but the right persons got it, and we felt vindicated that we had done a good job, and this is what has happened. And the present ruler of Pakistan, who's now deposed, Bangladesh. We felt that she was the right person to be there in power. And we felt very glad because she was an ally of India. Now she's been deposed. So we don't know exactly how things will pan out.
But does it feel odd to you? Because
we feel a bit sad.
Yeah.
But we also feel okay that we did what was right, irrespective of the consequences. It was good. Bangladesh was a friend. But if I may say so, Bangladesh is a volatile country.
Yeah.
If it has gone this way now, it may go back to where it was earlier. So we're hoping that the right people will come into power. We don't know what this government is going to be like. We're hoping it will be good. We're hoping they'll be an ally of India. Let's see how things make out.
I have more questions about your life as a war wounded, but one question about 1971. Just like we debated whether Haji Pir, was there any other option on giving Haji Pir back to the Pakistanis? The return of the prisoners of war, 90,000 of them in 1971 by Indira Gandhi. It is long cited today as a big mistake, that it should have been used as leverage. It should have been used as leverage over Kashmir to redraw or to finally draw out a map in a way that suited India's interests. When you look back at that decision, what do you think?
In one sentence, what we won in the war, we lost at the negotiating table. I think the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was in the euphoria of this great victory. She believed in being magnanimous in victory, and Pakistan was defeated. She felt perhaps that, like a big sister, that she should not. But I think it was a big mistake in the sense that we had 93,000 prisoners.
Yeah.
The sad part is that they had 54 of ours which have never come back. That is something which is unacceptable. Why?
And never been traced.
Never been. No, we know that they are there.
I mean, like Damayanti Tambe and others have spent their life looking for their husbands.
Yeah, this is inexcusable. Secondly,
why did we not take those 54 back before returning at least these 9? Like, what?
I can't understand that. See, the thing is that we won this war. Why is it? You see, why did we win this war? We won the war because there was synergy between the politician, the bureaucrat, and the armed forces.
Yeah.
There was synergy between the army, the navy, and the air force. One of the principles of war is cooperation. So cooperation was the cause of the victory of this war. But once the war was over, I feel, I don't have proof, but I feel the bureaucrats persuaded the Prime Minister to say, now the army is going to get too big for its shoes, you better put them in their place. Unheard of after any war was the army eliminated from the negotiating table. In all wars, the armed forces have been part of the negotiations. We were kept out. Why were we kept out? If we were not kept out, this would not have happened. But this has happened because we were kept out.
Why were you kept out?
Because I feel the politicians, the bureaucrat felt that you see, all around us, armies have taken over. And this bogey has always been there by the bureaucrats to convince the politician, don't let the army get too big for itself because it will take over sometime. And therefore, don't let them come to the negotiating table. They've done enough now. The battlefield is over now. It's our job to negotiate. And they made a mess of it. I feel they made a mess of it.
Does it make you angry to think about those 93,000 Pakistanis who were just released without anything gained in that release?
There's a small hitch there.
Which is?
Which is that when we treated you know what Sam Manekshaw did? Sam Manekshaw made our troops evacuate from the barracks so the prisoners could be in the barracks and our troops were put into tents.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He said...
Why did he do that?
He said, Abhi ye hamara mehman hai. Look after them. He had a point which nobody is thinking of. When you are able to convince the enemy that when you surrender, you will not be tortured and killed like they do to us.
More may surrender?
Yes, the next time. They will realize that India is a good country, it's a God-fearing country, it's a moral country.
But why did we send them back?
We should not have... See,
without a proper negotiation driven to a larger conclusion. I'm not saying don't send them back, but I'm saying there could have been a better outcome in that release.
Yes, Barkha, there could have been a better outcome, but we don't know what it would be because people are saying we should have negotiated for the POK coming back to India.
Yes.
Some say we could negotiated that the line of control becomes an international boundary, which also perhaps was acceptable because we don't want to go to war again and again. It's very costly. But neither of that happened. And that is because Bhutto, the wily person, the evil person, was able to convince Mrs. Gandhi that I will I'll lose respect in front of my people.
No, and that I will respect the line of control, which never happened.
Yeah, it never happened. So In hindsight, it was a mistake. We could have done better. But who am I as a soldier to say the politician was wrong? Because I don't know what was.
You're the person fighting the battle. You're the person who's lost your leg.
Yes, that's what they say, no? The wars are caused by politicians, compounded by bureaucrats, and fought by soldiers.
Do you ever feel bitter?
No, I don't. There's no point in feeling bitter, Barkha. There are so many things that happen in my life, even after the war. If you feel bitter, you're only harming yourself. So, better to be optimistic, better to work towards making Bangladesh an ally again, hoping that there will be better governance. They're good people. They're good people. So their points of not becoming an enemy of us, it depends upon how we handle them.
But did you feel bitter about losing a leg?
Not really. It was my own mistake. It was my stupidity.
How did life change? Because you were able to get back into active soldiering. You were able to be with your troops. There's this great story I read about a child who was about to drown and you took your leg off and you saved that child. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah. You see, when I told you I was practicing for 7-8 kilometers a day.
Yeah.
Now, my first test came when I joined the battalion. My wonderful battalion, the 1st Battalion, the 5th Gorkhas. I have 2 battalions, both wonderful.
Yeah.
So they were in Rajasthan, they were in the desert. So I went back with 2 bottles of Scotch whiskey and I said, I've come back after 18 years. But there wasn't a very warm welcome.
Why?
Because they felt that they've got a disabled officer as commanding officer of the battalion. Perhaps, I don't know. But maybe I felt wrongly or rightly that. So I said, what's the program for tomorrow? And they said, we're going on a 40-kilometer route march. 40 kilometers in sand. There'll be a jeep for you. So I knew that I could never command first 5 if I sat in that jeep.
That's right.
So I decided to march. And the 2IC was then, he said, sir, will you please come in the jeep? I said, no, I'm going to march. He said, sir, please come. I said, listen, who's commanding the battalion? You or me? He said, you, sir. I said, okay. Tell the jeep not to follow me back like a Baba black sheep. I want to go. I will walk. I will march. Give me a map, give me a compass, and give me a guide. That's it. I marched from 5 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. That's,
and how? Is this mind over matter or did you just train your body to adapt to a prosthetic leg?
I didn't think. I just felt that I've got command of this wonderful battalion. I need to be worthy to command it.
But you walked 40 kilometers?
40 kilometers in sand with a wooden leg. But when I finished, I felt so empowered that nothing can ever stop me again. So that was the good thing which happened, really. Put me to the test. Now coming back to this Kovalam thing.
Yes.
So the battalion then went back to Trivandrum, and I was commanding the battalion there. Now we were posted to J&K.
Yeah.
So we had a picnic on the beach.
In Kovalam?
At Kovalam, on the beach. And it was the month of June. Monsoon was about to start. The waves were a bit rough. Lifeguards came and said, Saab, the children are playing in the water, be careful. We said, don't worry. Now, as I had mentioned to you, I had trained a lot of children how to swim. One of the boys, 12-year-old boy, I had taught him how to float. A big wave came and pulled him out to sea. And the tide was going out. So quickly he was disappearing because the tide was pulling him out. He was shouting for help. Now, I had proved myself to some limit by doing that 40-kilometer march. I did 150 kilometers from Kanyakumari to Trivandrum. But still, there was that lurking doubt. It's not,
he's not fully fit.
In my mind, perhaps not in those. But here now was a chance not to prove myself, but a life to save. So none of them had the capability or capacity to save that boy. So I took off my leg. I asked 2 young officers to launch me into the sea. And I swam up to him. And he said, Uncle, save me. I said, son, don't touch me. We'll both go. Just leave me alone. With one hand, I supported his bottom. One hand, I supported his head because the waves were breaking over his face. And I said, those rocks there, we'll head for those rocks. If we miss those rocks, don't worry. A boat will come. Just be calm. And don't put your arm around my neck, whatever you do. Now, I had only one leg to push.
Yeah.
So with one leg, I managed, I don't know how, I think God was good, managed to reach those rocks and pushed him on top. And I had to swim back. The tide was running out. To swim back against the tide, it took me a long time. And a huge crowd had gathered on the beach. And they could not believe when I was helped out of the water that this guy had only one leg. Now, there were some journalists over there who wanted a story. So I said, there's no story to tell because in the army we don't talk about ourselves. I think I made a mistake because the army would have benefited if the story was told. Disability would have benefited. And later on, that is one of the reasons why I wrote my book. I said the man in the street doesn't know enough about the armed forces.
So I'm going to ask a silly question. Is it not difficult, much more difficult to swim with one leg? Because the push is only, I mean, where do you compensate for the energy of the second leg?
Yeah, we manage. We manage. The only stroke I cannot swim properly is the butterfly. Because you require both legs
the power,
both the legs to give the thrust. But I can swim otherwise, no problem whatsoever. Breaststroke, freestyle, backstroke.
Amazing. Now, towards the end, I want to talk a little bit about the larger battle that war-wounded and disabled soldiers have had to fight. Over the years, I've done a lot of reporting on this, and a lot of good people have done good work in getting different governments to withdraw appeals that were actually filed against these soldiers in courts. I know you've been raising your voice for these issues. What is the biggest challenge for disabled soldiers in the military today?
The attitude. The attitude of people in power to think that we are incapable of doing anything. We are capable of many things. To just give you an example, after I left hospital and I reached Delhi, I was told by the CDA, the Controller of Defence Accounts, that I was going to be on half pay.
Really?
I was on half pay. Because they said, you have been in hospital for more than 6 months. Now the rule applied not to battle casualties. It applied to people who were sick.
Right.
They had to pay for whatever. They should not have applied this to battle casualties, but they did.
Right.
It took a long time for them to sort this out. We got our money back, but the point is the very attitude of people. I had to go on the streets when I retired. I was working for an NGO, a person with disability. A wonderful person called Javed Abidi, a wonderful person. And
in a wheelchair himself.
In a wheelchair himself. We fought many battles. We made sure that people who are disabled could join the IAS, the IFS, every government job. He made every airport accessible. He made every building accessible. He improved health. He improved education. He was a wonderful person, and I was very happy to be with him as a soldier. I think he would have made a very good general because he was he had a very good strategy, very good tactics.
I remember him well, but how much has changed today in that attitude?
After Javed has gone, I think we have lost a pillar of advocacy, a person who could take on the government without fear. Today, the disability sector, in my opinion, is fractured. We are all in our own little pieces. That strength is...
And specifically in the military?
In the military, it's okay. In the military, we don't have a problem, provided it's applied to battle casualties. If you are involved in an accident, then you don't get that facility. It is only people who are involved in battle casualties or battle accidents who get this facility.
But these ton of cases that a lot of soldiers have worked and asked governments to withdraw, you see, soldiers have had to go to court, and for small amounts, the government or the government's lawyers, I don't even know at what level, the government has gone into appeal against them, right? And there was a ton of cases, and I know many soldiers who worked to persuade the government, please take these back. How much progress has been made on that?
I really don't know, Barkha, but it is a shame. It is a shame that the very Ministry of Defence, who should be supporting soldiers, has gone against them. And we have to fight for our rights. It's shameful.
Tell us a little bit about the Gorkhas. I think a lot of people, great fighting community, but your experience.
Yeah. You would recall that during the interview, what concerned me most was the fact that I was not being allowed to go back to my troops.
Yeah.
And I just wondered what I could do to get back, because I could think of no other life other than with the Gorkhas. Yeah. There is a saying amongst the Gorkhas, Kafir banda morno ramro. That is, it's better to die than be a coward. Yeah. And that's what they believe in. The greatest part about them is that life or death means little to them. Honor is most important. And this is what they've shown in all the wars that I've fought. In the 1965 war, I didn't describe this incident, but one of my company 2IC, when we were taking a convoy to Punch. Punch had been cut off for about 2 weeks. And we came across a group of infiltrators. He wanted to chase them and kill them. I said, Saab, he's known as Ek Saab because his number was JC 11111. So I said, Saab, Bin Bahadur Saab, we got to protect this convoy. We can't keep chasing after these people. Let us go and do our job. He was very unhappy. But when he got caught in the ambush, he took out his khukri. He decapitated the rocket launcher which blew off some of the heads of our Johnnies. He used a khukri to decapitate another, but his khukri got stuck in the soldier's skull. And then he got full with bullets, but he had a smile on his face. I've done what I wanted to do. That's what the Gorkha is all about. He is a fantastic soldier. Hunger, thirst, pain mean nothing to him. Honor is important, victory is important, and doing what is right. At the same time, he's very kind to old people, to animals, but he'll chop off your head without blinking an eyelid in war. But otherwise, he's a very kind, and everybody wants Johnny Gorkha to be with him as a batman or the driver or whatever, because he's such a wonderful human being. So Gorkhas are out of the ordinary human beings, out of the ordinary soldiers. Of course, others will say, Mahas will say,
everybody would feel that about their
but I think
Paltans,
I think we have an edge over there.
I should ask you, there's a lot of debate over recruiting Gorkhas and whether that might come to an end.
Yeah, it's all because of Agniveer. The economy of Nepal depends upon the pensions and the pay of salaries of people in India. Nepal depends a lot on Indian money to survive. But with Agniveer, it's not going to happen. And the Gorkha soldier will not be recruited. So we need, government unfortunately is not taking a strong stand. We are in denial of what is right. We know that this is wrong. We are denying that this is wrong. We need to turn this around completely. If Agniveer is so good, why don't we apply to the IAS, the IFS and the paramilitary forces? Why only to the army? So they are being very partial. They want to put the army in its place. And I think they need to have a relook at this and have the guts to say that this was a wrong decision. Why can't they say so?
And what would be the larger implications of no Gorkhas in the Indian army?
Well, we lose a large chunk of very brave soldiers. That's what I can say. I'm not saying that the Indian soldier is not equally brave, equally good. He is. We can manage. But the point is now, what will happen is we'll have the Gorkhas against us. China is eager to recruit them. It's a stupid decision.
Passionately said. And as I said, I'm not a fan of the Agniveer scheme. I want to end by asking you, as a soldier, what are you proudest of?
It's a difficult question. I'm proudest of the fact that I belonged to an army which had who believed in love. Now when you say, you're a Fauji, what do you know about love? So it is on the altar of love that men and women in uniform put their lives in the line of fire and disappear in the smoke and fire of battles. Love for country, love for the people of India, love for the life we live, love for the regiment, life for adventure. I think that is what makes the army what it was. And stupid schemes like Agnipat need to be scrapped because that won't be the same army anymore.
Talk a little bit about that.
As far as Agnipat is concerned, see, when you take a decision about anybody, those people should have been involved. This was taken unilaterally by the government on a stupid scheme, experiment offered by the army.
I mean, the government argues that the army leadership was on board with it. We do have a former chief, Naravne's book, which has since been withheld, but we do know that there was disagreements on the amount, the number of years.
See,
to those who say, I'm not a fan of Agniveer, I should say that up front, I've said it in writing, but to those who say, how is this different from Short Service Commission? I think you must answer that.
Short Service Commission is only for officers.
Yes.
The bulk of the army is in soldiers. Our soldiers are the best in the world. Why? Because they come from rural areas. They're very strong. They're very motivated. They're ethical. And they know that they will be able to fulfill their terms of employment. They'll be able to work till as long as possible. They'll get a pension. And if anything happens to them, they'll be looked after. That doesn't happen with Agniveer. If you look at what happened in the beginning of the Russian-Ukraine war, there was a parallel army in Russia filled with people who are these Agniveers. So the point is, if you're going to train soldiers and leave them after 4 years, they're going to be embittered, they're going to be unhappy. Take wealth, work against the country, work against the army.
And you also feel it would change the essential ethos of the forge?
We need to go back to our roots. We need to go back to the fact that love is most important. Honor is most important, like what happened in Dograi, what happened in Sylhet, what happened in everywhere. All the battles we fought is all based on honor. So we need to stand up for what is right irrespective of the consequences. Is that happening? I don't know. We need, like Sam Manekshaw, like Thimaya, they used to stand up to the government to protect the country first. The answer is put country first in all your decision making. Put country first.
I love the idea of soldiers fighting at the altar of love. I don't think it's ever been quite framed like that. General Cardozo, congratulations on your new book on the 1965 war and its many untold stories, and all of your other writings. And there's no departure lounge. I just want to say that. Looking forward to your next book and our next conversation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Barkha. Good meeting you again.
Thank you, sir. God bless.
Thank you.